Most guitarists are gain staging their amp sims completely wrong, and the reason is simple. They're watching the wrong meter. Your DAW is showing you a peak meter, but guitar amps don't respond to peaks. They respond to average signal energy. The fix is surprisingly simple. You just need to read a different meter. And when I tried this for myself, my levels landed somewhere I completely didn't expect. But here's the important part. That number isn't a magic rule, but understanding why will help you to get way better results from your amp sims. So when you're recording guitar inside your DAW, the meter you're almost always going to be looking at is a peak meter. Peak meters show the instant loudest moment of a signal, so when you pick a guitar string, the meter jumps up. But that spike only lasts a fraction of a second, and the problem is that guitar amps don't really react to that spike. Real tube circuits respond much more to the average energy of the signal over time. That's what creates the compression, the sustain, the harmonics that we associate with great amps, and that's exactly what the VU meter was designed to measure. A VU meter works very differently. Instead of tracking the fastest peaks, it moves more slowly and gives you an average energy of the signal. Think of it as measuring how hard you're actually hitting the amp rather than the moment your pick touches the string. So if we place a VU meter before our amp, we can measure the signal the amp is actually reacting to. Now, most VU plugins are calibrated so that 0 VU equals around minus 18 dBFS. That's the meter inside your DAW. This comes from old analog studio standards, but most analog emulating plugins are built around this principle. But here's where things get interesting. Not all instruments naturally hit 0 VU, and guitar is one of them. So I decided to put this to the test myself. I put a VU meter. You can see this one here on the screen from Klanghelm called VU-MT. I put that before my amp sim, which is Cypress TT15, a great free amp, by the way, from Black Rooster Audio. Played normally for a while, strumming some chords, playing a bit of a riff, doing the kinds of things that I would do in a real session. And something interesting happened. Take a look. The needle doesn't get anywhere near 0 VU. Instead, the average level sits somewhere around minus 10 VU most of the time. If I was going to push the gain higher to try and force it to hit 0, my interface is going to start clipping. So the natural average level of my guitar performance ended up sitting around the middle of the VU meter, around roughly minus 10 VU, and that turned out to be a really healthy signal for the amp sim. But this is the part that's really important. Minus 10 VU isn't a rule. It's just where my guitar landed when playing naturally. Your guitar, your pickups, your playing style might land somewhere slightly different. There's another reason why we shouldn't obsess over a single number, and that's because not all amp sims are calibrated in the same way. Some expect a hotter input, some expect lower levels, and even high-end amp sims will react differently. From Amplitude to Neural DSP to Universal Audio, all of these plugins react differently to their incoming levels. In my case, when I sent a minus 10 VU signal into this brilliant Ruby plugin from Universal Audio, the amp input knob was actually way too hot and I had to turn it down. Check it out. Which proves something really important. The VU meter gives you a healthy starting point, but you still need to adjust the amp input stage so it behaves naturally. And honestly, that's exactly what engineers do with real amps anyway. So here's a really simple workflow that I would recommend. Step 1, insert a VU meter before your amp sim. Step 2, Play normally for a while, don't chase a number, just watch where the average level naturally sits. For many guitars that might land somewhere between -12 and -6 VU. In my case it was around -10 VU. Finally, step 3, adjust that input control on your amp so the amp reacts naturally. You want it to feel dynamic, not stiff or over distorted. The reason this works is simple. Peak meters show those momentary spikes, whilst VU meters show the musical energy. And guitar amps respond much more to the overall average energy than they do to those momentary peaks. So when you gain stage using a VU meter, you're actually feeding your amp sim a signal that behaves more like an amplifier expects. The goal isn't to chase a magic number, it's simply to stop relying on peak meters alone when gain staging your guitars. Try inserting a VU meter before your amp sim, play normally and see where your guitar naturally sits. You might be surprised where that sweet spot actually is. And once you find it, your amp sims can start feeling a lot closer to the real thing.